You may be ready. Am I ready?
Am I ready? I'm ready, Don. Welcome, welcome to Writers Read. Here we are again, and we are glad to have two readers today. We have Don Frothingham and Nancy Wiesner. So let's start with Paul Niebank's poem. It's just part of our routine, and it feels so right. Here we go. Write, write, write.
Right, right, right.
Until you get it right.
Until you get it right.
Then read aloud.
Then read aloud.
You'll draw a crowd.
You'll draw a crowd.
And bring us great delight.
And bring us great delight.
Okay, Don, it is so good to welcome you back. I treasure my book.
Well, that's good. Somebody's got it.
I've loaned it out many times, and
it's always come back unread. We can't understand a word in here. If only you wrote in English, we would do better.
But thank you for coming back, and I'm looking forward to hearing your story today. But I want to ask you if you have a memory of either somebody reading to you as a young child, or you reading, but I think you do have a memory of somebody reading to you.
Yeah.
Would you tell us that story?
I can, yeah. Down in about one sentence or two or three sentences.
That would be all we need.
Good. Thank goodness for that. I don't need a mask then. And I don't even need my glasses.
No. It's in here, isn't it, Don?
Fading fast, but what can I say?
Okay, tell us about the book that you were shown as a child, and who was it that opened the book and showed you a squirrel, and can you tell that story again?
Well, I could try. I'm very good at fiction, so.
Tell us a good story.
Yeah.
About you getting read to by somebody else.
You want me to tell that right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
What?
And then we're going to hear you read.
Okay. Well, the earliest I can remember is some woman, and I don't know what her name was. I don't think it was Mrs. Mills, but it was some woman. And I was sitting on her lap, and she had this book. And I don't think I'd ever seen a book before. And she opened it, and she showed me a picture of a little squirrel under a tree, and here was a tree, and there was a little squirrel, and he was getting nuts. And I thought, wow, that is fascinating. Can you imagine putting that on a piece of paper? I just thought...
What a good memory.
And I just thought, that's unbelievable.
Oh.
And since then, I've always thought, wow, a piece of paper just is a marvelous thing. A tabula rasa. You all know what that means. Not all of you speak Latin, I'm sure, but anyway, I thought, that's fascinating. And I always look at a piece of paper and imagine what I could put on that to overcome tabula rasa.
Thank you, Dawn.
But anyway, that's...
I love that you shared that memory. I appreciate it so much.
But, yeah, when you're a little boy, you have bad asthma, and you learn to look outside the window. You don't dwell on, oh, this is terrible. You look positive, and you look outside, and there are all kinds of things outside a window.
Exactly.
That a lot of people don't even bother with.
Exactly.
And I do remember what I used to go down the end of my bed and look out, and there was a big sassafras tree which was hollow.
Whoa.
And it had starlings living in it.
Oh,
Starlings were my best friend, I can tell you that. And they just made all kinds of wonderful noises,
the noise
singing, and I thought, they're my real buddies out there.
That's a wonderful memory.
So
memory.
I do have long memories about a lot of things.
Yeah. Okay, Don. Now we're ready to hear you read from your book. Is that what you're ready to do?
Oh, that's really, I guess it's all ever be. Let's see, these are glasses, aren't they? Now, those don't go on my ears, so they go on something else.
There we go.
On either side of my nose,
Okay.
Now you want me to read. All right, these things don't have titles. They're just in a book. So I'm just going to give you the date they were written on. And this was April 26, 1956, if you catch your mind back.
Yes.
It says, into Austria without money except traveler's checks which no one could cash. And so no ticket and no breakfast except for Greek bread and ouzo. That's something you drink. And a coffee seller. And Graz, she comes into the train, pushes her cart into the compartment in front of mine, and after the train starts, she moves down the aisle, the cart smelling of wondrous pastries and coffee. She knocks on my compartment. I try to explain I have no money, and she goes on. Half an hour later, she is back and goes into her compartment, and a moment later comes into mine with coffee and pastry for us both. I am melted. I couldn't believe what a sweet person she was.
Yeah.
Entry into Zurich, this is April 28th in the same year, 56, so it's only 3 days later. Entry into Zurich, inauspicious, overloaded with parcels, strap on the knapsack broken, inability to understand simple messages in language, wearing my sweater backwards since the front shows the stains of eating much honey while camping. This plus long hair from avoiding barbers in Greece and Turkey. A cold in the head from sleeping in overheated third-class compartments with open windows, and a consequence tendency toward diarrhea and weariness make me no asset to the Swiss scene. But spirits are high from traveling through some beautiful country between Vienna and Zurich and encountering a wonderful girl with 5 names who must now rest in a sanatorium near Innsbruck for 6 months prior to having an operation. And I have a wonderful photograph of her. In Zurich, Sunday, April 29, 1956. I sit now in a little park in the angle between the Zeltweg and Rehmstrasse, sit in the sun and the sound of sparrows and old ladies walking with dogs and canes on the gravel, a man with a cigar. I sit in the sound of bells for Sunday out of red steeples, stone steeples on roofs red, bells singing sound over the roof and streetcar noises for Sunday in the morning in the city with clothes, with gloves and a flowered hat. But to church, while another sails his boat on the lake and others perched with laughing girls on motorcycles to the country go to picnic and wine, and trees over the flowers darken the blue sky above in the white and yellow in the green. Spring in a dirt road to run down fast, dodging the puddles that glitter in the sun. Now 3 girls, nicely dressed and speaking French, with a dozen little children, run in the sun in the park to church close after church. Run in the sun, laughing and chattering French in the sun. 2 little girls have yellow sweaters and plaid skirts, and 2 have blue coats. How wonderful they all are, so clean, pretty colored, dressed, laughing, with the energy and speed of spring, now resting, breathing on a bench, and now off to hide behind a tree. Such beautiful faces and such laughter and such children for 3 girls to watch them. I know not the relationship between them all. A school, the girls in charge, speaking French, seem to know life better than we, playing hide and seek behind the trees. And so passes an unforgettable moment in the Sunday morning park as all start to go except one little girl in a blue coat who obviously has a wonderful mind of her own and causes a laughing struggle before leaving. I would love to ask who they are or to see where they go, but it is perhaps better to leave them as they were. A view seen by, or might have been a tree, and so I sit with a sparrow's twitter, while behind me, unseen, in a tree, a bird or vogel sings a little song.
Oh, Don. What a gift you're giving us, Don. Thank you so much.
I haven't finished.
Oh, I'm glad you haven't finished.
And so early in the morning, up in the little park near the Remstrasse, but no children, no French-speaking girls. So after writing Eve, I walked down past the French church and found church out. Apparently, the final day of Sunday school. Many children lined up on the steps for a picture, restless, moving, while parents watch and talk in the court below. I see the 2 little girls in blue coats from the Sunday in April, my favorites, particularly the one with a mind of her own. And they have partly climbed a fence through which they peer into the court, watched by their handsome, strong-bodied mother before climbing into a blue Volkswagen ZH40523 and driving off.
Wonderful, Don. Wonderful. Don, just an idea. Have you recorded you reading your book?
I know I haven't recorded anything.
You have a wonderful voice and timbre.
I want to ask if he had one more to read.
Yeah. Is that all we're gonna get?
One more.
Can you read more?
Could I read more right now?
Yeah.
Well, it's possible. I don't guarantee what I'm going to read, but I'm going to read something that Anne wanted me to read. The first watercolors in 1943 revolved around my world of boats, marshes, dawn and dusk, the attitude of fog and rain. In February 1951, I encountered the paintings of Morris Graves, and the effect was liberating. Graves' consciousness achieving the form of a crane struck a deep chord. I went home and at 2 in the morning painted a car changing from one state to another. In Zurich, after encountering silent chapels and shrines in Greece and in Turkey, I began a series of signs in the field to indicate the presence of a consciousness which left a mark in the landscape. The signs evolved into entity blocks or temples, a sign of how man expressed himself on the seventh day. The realm beyond food, shelter, survival. This temple form eventually became the circle in the square, a mandala, which I have continued to use to denote an individual consciousness. And then, let me see, okay. And then I go to several paintings, which I can show you, because they're all, I think they're all here. Achieving 5 horizons, but not 6.
Do you want to put the book up so you can show the paintings? I meant to bring the paintings, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I don't know if they can
It's such a wonderful book.
see the painting.
You should show.
Yeah. Good idea to combine the paintings with the writing. Anything I can do to help, Don?
Let's see if I can find it.
If you give me your book,
Well, maybe we should find it in this
we'll
one,
find it later here.
and then he could read.
You just tell me the plate number.
I'm trying to find it.
I have to go to the, see where I've got a, well, I can't find an index.
I meant to
Without
write it down, I'm
index.
sorry, I forgot.
What is it called? That one's called
With the book and show. I don't think people have enough.
Achieving 5 horizons, but not 6.
Well,
34.
34?
34.
34?
here it is.
Good, so I can hold this up.
That's this one here.
Yeah.
Is it the same one? Do we have the same one? Oh, wonderful, Don.
And then it's Tiamat on the left-hand side. It's Tiamat.
And the other one is called You Only Live Once. This one's called Achieving 5 Horizons, but not 6. And I remember one woman, it was her reaction to that one. And I said, horizons are in one's mind. And here a life has achieved much, but there's always something beyond to catch one's curiosity, to aspire to hope for. To me, someone who lacks this perspective or this vision, has one foot in the grave, is closed down, a life with a dead end. A man in the East said the painting mirrored his worst nightmare. No matter how much he accomplished, he was never able to satisfy his family's ambitions. If he achieved 5, he was expected to achieve 6. And I said to him, be thankful, some never achieve 1. Whatever you were able to do, you need to have always something beyond. A dear friend, jolted by the reoccurrence of cancer after 8 years in remission, in those first days in shock and grief, found the painting spoke to her directly. It gave her the ability to come to terms with her own mortality, to be able to talk about it with her children. She had achieved a full measure of life, but there was always something beyond, something immeasurably bigger and not to be conquered. It was there beyond definition.
Thank you so much, Don. And I just want to tell you thank you for reminding me that we live in Horizon House.
Right.
And that word horizon can be revisited a number of ways
Sure.
and a number of times. So I might do some thinking about the word horizon.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Don.
my pleasure.
It was just a gift,
Thank-
just a gift.
Oh, you don't get paid for water.
And we're back with Nancy Wiesner. And Nancy Wiesner is giving us a gift today of poetry. And I am so delighted that you're, in a way, opening a door, Nancy, because you're the first person to read your poetry in Horizon House, and I think there are others amongst us
I hope so.
so you're setting the standard here, dear heart, and thank you so much. But I understand that you do have a little story of your earliest reading memory. Would you share that with us?
My mother was a grammar school teacher, and she loved to read out loud, and she was very good at it. And she used to read to us every night before we went to bed, to my older brother, my dad, and me. And the books that she chose were very eclectic, all kinds. But the one that she and my dad loved the best was Winnie the Pooh. And I remember my brother and me sitting on the couch on either side of my mother, and my dad sitting on the chair across from the sofa, and my mother reading Winnie the Pooh, and my dad starting to laugh, and then my mother starting to laugh, and it was when Winnie the Pooh sees a heffalump, and my mother reading this, and my brother and me sitting there looking at each other and thinking, what is so funny? We had no idea what they were laughing at. I have such a funny memory of that. But that lasted throughout my childhood, was that she would read to us every night.
Oh,
And it was,
thank you for sharing that,
Yeah.
Nancy. That's a good memory.
yeah.
I remember that.
Okay, I am not a poet. This is my oeuvre right here. And I've gone through, over the years, I am more of a visual person, and I'll see something and I'll try to explain in the fewest words possible what it is, and then put it away somewhere. And so going through my poetry was really interesting for me, and I'm glad you'll indulge me to let me do it. For 45 years, I lived in Atlanta and moved here 20 years ago. And this is a poem about an ice storm, because ice storms in Georgia are very vicious, and lots of pine trees fall down and do a lot of damage. So this is called Ice Storm Threatens Dixie. Downtown, the rope of Christmas greenery escapes, whipped out of the workman's hands by a liberating gust. Onlookers gather to watch as the artificial serpent is recaptured and wrestled into seasonal boughs. There will be sleet tonight. The blazered anchor from Storm Central predicts ice will coat tree limbs, causing power outages as they crash down on rooftops and tear wires from their holdings. Those who don't have to be out should stay home. Outside the night shelter, the men are herded by the wind. All day long, their desperation has grown with each shaft of bitter cold cutting between buildings. Their nests on church steps, deserted parking decks, in areas where the concrete protects from notice are abandoned. The bright gymnasium with its steamed over windows, its smell of disinfectant, its canvas cots piled high, could be heaven. Supper is served by suburbanites united in hilarity, proud to have braved the potentially hazardous driving conditions. Children and teens have been brought along for an urban experience. Tonight, the men don't mind being gawked at by youth whose eyes glaze with sincerity, who will remember this evening forever. Lights out at 9. The men will be wakened at 5:30 and ejected into streets slick with rain, but no ice. Soon traffic will begin. Children will glumly dress for schools they had desperately hoped would be called off. After some nagging, they will wear their jackets, even mittens and scarves, smelling of mothballs, so they won't freeze at the bus stop. In the city, workmen will place ribbons and specially sheared dwarf Christmas trees. They will anchor lights and shiny globes under cornices and moldings, eaves, anything that will provide support and shelter against the vagaries of winter weather. Okay, this is the introduction. This is called Zimmer School. In the Midwest, the Land Ordinance of 1785 surveyed and divided land of the Northwest Territory, formerly inhabited by indigenous peoples, into townships. Congress reserved one section near the middle of each township for a public school. This is a poem about Zimmer School. The Zimmer School's one room is lined with counters stocked with peppers, cantaloupes, tomatoes. Suburbanites stand aside as locksmith unloads his flatbed truck. Corn, freshly pulled, soon fills bushel baskets. All 8 grades were in this room. Desks were here, the blackboard there behind that freezer. The well out back is filled in now. See the pressed tin ceiling? The 3 old pictures tacked to the door jamb? In one, my mother's bright face stands out from the others lined up for the Zimmer School portrait. The schools were solid, built of brick laid by neighbors, tall windows on 3 sides, a row of windbreak poplars on the north, a center door where generations stood for portraits. Today we've come for corn from the bottomland, its acre rimmed by rows of aluminum houses, sprouted in the treeless August heat. Lot Smith grew up on Zimmer Road. He went to the county school with green chalkboards, a lighted stadium, and advantages. My mother passes by her picture on the door, chooses apples enough to make a pie, a perfect ending for a feast of corn from Zimmer School. She briskly snaps her change purse shut, pleased with her thrift, content with the bargain. Tell me when I've read enough. This is
Not nearly.
at the foot clinic for the homeless. All week it rained, so his shoes got wet, and in the shelters he has to keep them on at night. Who would steal an old bum's shoes? An old bum, that's who. You wouldn't think a guy like him would be embarrassed, but he is, sitting on the metal chair across from the lady with her towels and her pan of soapy water and her nail clippers and her rubber gloves and the stuff for the athlete's foot, which he has pretty bad now because of the rain and the wet socks and the creeps in the shelters who will steal your shoes. When she's washed his feet, he'll have to put them in her big soft lap. He wishes he could just get the socks they give you and leave. He doesn't want her to see the pale hanging skin swollen from days of wet. He says how bad they are and kind of laughs, but she can't hear him from the noise in the room. She nods and pats him on the knee and smiles too wide, and he feels sick with shame. But the warm water feels so good, and the rough washcloth makes his foot tingle. The lady scrubs his toes, getting in between them and rubs them hard. When she's done, she dries his feet and the dead skin shreds off, and he looks away from the towel so he won't see. She files his calluses and cuts his black soft toenails thick from fungus. She puts a blob of some greasy stuff on her fingers and kneads and rubs and works his toes and ankles and the bottoms of his feet. And even though he can still feel her hands, it's like he isn't even there anymore. He's up in the ceiling, looking down at this guy with this old lady bent over him about an inch from his feet, like she could kiss every one of his toes. and he almost falls asleep from the warmth and the rhythm of her hands and the comfort of her big soft lap. This little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. This little piggy had roast beef, and this little piggy had none.
Oh, Nancy, thank you so much. Oh, we hope you will continue reading some more. These are gifts. Thank you so much. This is just fine there.
No, keep on going.
Keep going.
Oh,
Yes, I'm
okay.
hoping you're ready to read some more.
Oh,
Wonderful.
this is a bizarre one. I was in New York in 9/11, and
Oh,
just as a tourist, just happened to be there, and so I had a sense of the ashes, just ashes everywhere. And I don't know if I captured that in this, and so I would love comments, because this is, as one of my friends said, poems are never done, they're just abandoned, and I really feel this is a work in progress. It's titled Ashes. I thought the bloomless clumps of daylilies out back might be the orange ones that you see along county roads. Get ashes, said the county agent. Cover them up in the fall. You'll get flowers. I did as told, and sure enough, the once barren plants budded and bloomed the summer long. A garage sale botany book provided the explanation. Phosphorus and potassium, essential elements in plant growth and reproduction. So they're useful, I guess, ashes are, and symbolic, of course. Phoenix we learned about in school, and the smudges the Catholic kids smugly wore on their foreheads on Ash Wednesday. But the bird rises instead of the ashes, not because of them. And the ashes at Easter mean penitence, I think, or grief, or pride. Now the ashes from a trade center, covering streets, cars, rounds of cheese and a deli case, a fine china tea service, a rag doll, victims, bystanders. You've seen the pictures. What are we to do with them? There's nothing here essential to growth and reproduction. This residue is greasy, full of body parts and vouchers and hard drives and evil. The grief clings, it chokes the living, gags us with its odor. We live modern lives full of things that burned turned to acrid horror. The trucks piled high with powdery residue become themselves symbolic. They must have a somewhere to dump the leavings of combustion, the toxic burnt out ends. His grieving family will scatter a small pile of gravel that was once part of the towers, said the obituary. And his father, we will bless the ashes. They're commingled, but we'll treat them as if they're his. A woman I know once couldn't keep herself from wetting a finger, dipping it into the ashes of a departed loved one, then touching it to her lips. Real metallic, she reported. Real.
Nancy, that said it. That said it beautifully. Thank you. Do continue. We'll have plenty of time.
Oh,
Really?
Really?
You have a wonderful full folder there. We're looking forward to more, Nancy.
All right. Okay, this is called Samaritan. For Elizabeth. You've been robbed 5 times since Jesus told you, an 80-year-old lady, to get on the bus and ride 4 long days and nights for your ministry, which would be made clear to you. In a summer full of rain and mosquitoes, you sleep here and there, protected, private. God will provide, you say, as we fidget. You give yourself to us. We find your bags, the papers you bundle again and again with rubber bands. We are burdened, worried. Then we are kind, resolute. We scheme and plan. Find a donor, get a ticket, some food for your journey home, a crisp 20. We are deeply satisfied. You smile, pleased that we are happy, until you don't. Then your face crumples, your blue eyes water. But I'm so disappointed, so very disappointed. Only later, as we imagine you traveling cross-country to transparency in Greyhound plush, do we pause and wonder what it was that Jesus told you to do, and if your ministry, Elizabeth, was us.
Thank you, Nancy. Wow. Do continue to write poetry.
Oh,
really.
okay.
And I love your idea that it's a work in progress. I've done some
Yeah.
writing and I never feel it's done.
Oh, I know.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Nancy. That was wonderful. Okay.